All right, so let's talk about how ecosystems work. Typically, they work pretty well. Over long periods of time, they tend to be very stable. The inputs, the outputs, the disturbances are pretty consistent, and ecosystems are what we would refer to as resilient. They can bounce back from harm relatively effectively, and that's because conditions in all of Earth's spheres typically remain relatively stable. So ecology, geology, the atmosphere, the hydrosphere, they're all pretty stable. And because of that, ecosystems function properly. They function effectively. But that idea of stability, you have to ask yourself, is that still possible today? Is that still possible in a world with climate change, in a world with deforestation, in a world with pollution and the poaching and the removal of organisms, the introduction of bad ones, the removal of good ones? Is stability still possible? So I want you to think about that when you think about what we're sort of working with this week. This week's a short one, but it will require you to really sort of reflect on your impact on this planet, your impact on biodiversity, on how ecosystems work, and how you might want to change your impact. So, once again, obviously we don't have dinosaurs anymore, so ecosystems aren't always stable, but for the most part, for long periods of time, they are. They function normally. But when human beings started doing their thing, which has immense potential to be good, it also has a lot of bad consequences, as I'm sure you're aware of. And what I want you to do this week is consider your personal impact on the planet and think about it, and think about what you can do to maybe have a tiny bit of change, have a tiny bit of positive impact to sort of overpower a little bit of your negative impact. Because right now, the world is changing very, very quickly. And you have to ask yourself, do you want it to change for the better or for the worse? And what your role might be in that process. So this week I want you to take a little quiz, ecological footprint quiz, and see what your impact is and how you might think about changing that impact in small ways. I'll give you some guidance, I'll give you some support, obviously, but think about those ideas. Can we still have stable ecosystems in the world that we've created, and how can we create a world where that's still possible, where that's still reasonable, where your children or your grandchildren can still experience and appreciate the things that maybe you take for granted? What sacrifices are you willing to make for future generations? Think about that.